What happens when one of Hollywood's most private young stars sits across the table from one of daytime television's most outspoken voices, and neither of them backs down? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks, and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras pan across the table, the audience applauding as Timothée Chalamet walks out with a polite smile, waving slightly, clearly a little reserved but gracious. Whoopi Goldberg leans back in her chair, giving him that measured look she's known for. Not unfriendly, but observant. The applause settles. Whoopi starts first. Timothée, welcome. You've been busy. New film, awards buzz, and apparently some strong opinions. The audience gives a light murmur, that tone of anticipation already in the room. Timothée smiles. I try not to have strong opinions on daytime television, he says lightly, earning a few laughs. Joy Behar jumps in. Oh, honey, that's not how this table works. More laughter. The tension is playful for now. Whoopi folds her hands. Let's talk about something you said recently. In an interview, you mentioned that actors shouldn't be expected to serve as political spokespeople. That raised some eyebrows. Timothée shifts in his seat slightly. Sure. I just think artists should be allowed to focus on the work. I'm not dismissing activism. I just don't think it should be mandatory. Sunny Hostin tilts her head. But isn't silence also a statement? The audience reacts softly. A few claps. Timothée nods carefully. Sometimes. But I think it's complicated. There's a lot of pressure right now for public figures to comment on every issue immediately. And I think that pressure can flatten nuance. Whoopi leans in. Nuance is great. But when people look up to you, and they do, staying neutral can look like indifference. The air shifts slightly. Timothy's smile fades just a touch. I'm not neutral, he says calmly. I vote. I care. I donate. But I don't think tweeting every thought makes someone more committed. A ripple goes through the audience, some applause, some murmurs. Joy chimes in, but tweeting can amplify voices that need it. And it can oversimplify complex issues, Timothée responds. Whoopi raises her hand slightly, moderating. Let's slow it down. Nobody's saying you need to tweet every 5 minutes. But we're in a time when certain rights are under attack. When you have a platform that big, people wonder why you wouldn't use it loudly. Timothée pauses before answering. He chooses his words carefully. I think there's this assumption that if you're not loud, you're absent. And I disagree with that. I've met organizers who work quietly and do incredible things. They don't have millions of followers. Sunny nods. That's fair. But you do have millions of followers. A soft "oh" from the audience. Timothée smiles faintly. I know. And I respect that responsibility. I just don't think the only way to be responsible is through public declarations. Whoopi watches him closely. So when fans ask you to speak out directly, and you don't, what do you say to them? He takes a breath. I say that I'm human. I'm still learning. And sometimes I need time to understand an issue before I speak on it. Joy interrupts. But by the time you understand it, the moment's passed. The audience reacts again, a few claps, a few murmurs of agreement. Timothy's tone shifts slightly, still calm but firmer. That's kind of the problem, though. We've created a culture where speed matters more than understanding. Whoopi leans back. Or maybe understanding comes from engaging in real time. There's a pause. The kind that doesn't usually happen on a daytime show. The audience feels it. Timothée glances toward the audience briefly, then back to the table. I think sometimes people want celebrities to confirm what they already believe. And if you don't align perfectly, you're criticized. Sunny responds quickly. That's accountability. Or it's pressure, Timothée replies. The tension is no longer playful. It's still respectful, but sharper. Whoopi tilts her head slightly. Are you saying accountability is pressure? I'm saying, Timothée says carefully, that there's a difference between asking someone to care and demanding they perform caring. The audience reacts audibly to that line, a mix of applause and scattered gasps. Joy raises her eyebrows. Perform caring? Timothée nods. Yes. Posting a statement because your PR team says you have to. That's performance. Actually doing something meaningful off camera. That's different. Sunny crosses her arms slightly. But how do people know you're doing that? Timothée shrugs gently. Maybe they don't. And maybe that's okay. Whoopi doesn't smile this time. See, that's where I struggle. Because when you're in the public eye, perception matters. You don't get to opt out of that. And I'm not trying to opt out, Timothée responds. I'm trying to push back against the idea that visibility equals virtue. The audience gives a louder reaction this time, a wave of applause mixed with uneasy chatter. Joy laughs lightly to diffuse it. Oh, this is going to be a long morning. Whoopi nods slowly. You're thoughtful. I'll give you that. But here's my concern. When younger fans see you, someone they admire, staying publicly quiet on certain things, they might think those things aren't urgent. Timothée leans forward now. Or they might learn that it's okay to educate yourself before speaking. That it's okay not to treat every issue like a social media trend. Sunny interjects. No one here is treating serious issues like trends. I'm not saying you are, he replies quickly. I'm just saying the environment encourages quick takes. There's a silence again, heavier this time. Whoopi's voice lowers slightly. Timothée, I've been doing this a long time. When something affects people's lives in real time, waiting can feel like indifference. Especially to those who are hurting. That lands. The audience quiets completely. Timothy's expression softens. I understand that, and I don't want anyone to think I don't care. I just don't want to pretend I have answers I don't have. Joy looks at Whoopi. Whoopi looks back at Timothée. And what happens, Whoopi asks slowly, when silence benefits the powerful? A visible shift in the room. Timothée takes a deeper breath this time. I don't believe my silence empowers anyone. I think systems are bigger than my Instagram. A few nervous laughs from the audience. Sunny says firmly, influence is real. So is individual responsibility, he answers. Whoopi leans forward, elbows on the table now. That's exactly the point. You have influence. That is responsibility. The applause grows louder, clearly divided. Timothée doesn't back down. Responsibility to be honest. Not performative. Joy exhales loudly. He keeps using that word. Because it matters, Timothée says, still composed. Whoopi's voice is steady but intense. And so does impact. The camera cuts briefly to audience members nodding, some whispering to each other. Timothée looks directly at Whoopi. Impact isn't measured only in volume. There's a beat. Whoopi responds quietly. Sometimes it is. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Timothée doesn't smile now. He's serious. If I speak, I want it to be because I've taken the time to understand what I'm speaking about. Not because the internet clock is ticking. Joy glances at the clock jokingly. Well, our clock is ticking too. The audience laughs, tension easing slightly, but not completely. Whoopi looks at Timothée again, softer but still firm. I respect that you want depth. I do. But the world doesn't always wait for depth. And maybe that's part of the problem, Timothée replies. There's a long pause. The energy at the table is no longer just debate. It's a real disagreement about responsibility, influence, and the role of public figures. Whoopi folds her hands again. So let me ask you directly. If tomorrow something major happens, something that affects millions, will you speak? Timothée doesn't hesitate this time. If I understand it well enough to contribute meaningfully, yes. Sunny presses. And if you don't? He meets her gaze. Then I'll learn first. The audience murmurs again, clearly split. Whoopi leans back slowly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, I want to talk about whether learning quietly is enough in a loud world. The camera pulls back as the audience claps, louder than before but charged. Timothée sits still, composed, but the air between him and Whoopi is unmistakably tense. And it's clear, this conversation is far from over. The audience is still buzzing when the show returns from commercial. The applause sign flashes, and the clapping swells again, but there's a different energy now. Less celebratory, more anticipatory. The camera settles back on the table. Timothée sits upright, hands clasped loosely in front of him. Whoopi looks composed, but focused. Whoopi starts immediately. So before the break, she says evenly, we were talking about responsibility and timing. And I want to stay there because this isn't just theoretical. The audience quiets again. Timothée nods. Sure. Whoopi continues. You said you want to understand an issue before you speak. I respect that. But sometimes understanding comes from listening publicly. From standing with people publicly. It's not about having all the answers. Timothée leans slightly forward. I agree that listening is important. I just don't think listening requires a press release. A few audience members clap lightly. Sunny jumps in. But when you don't say anything, it can look like you're choosing comfort over discomfort. Timothée looks at her directly. Or I'm choosing thoughtfulness over reaction. Joy lets out a soft, oh boy, half joking, half bracing. Whoopi's tone sharpens just a touch. Let me push back on something you said earlier. You mentioned PR teams telling people what to post. Are you suggesting that when people speak out, it's fake? Timothy shakes his head. No, I'm saying sometimes the system incentivizes visible statements more than real action. That's not an attack on anyone at this table. Sunny responds quickly. It can sound like one. I'm not trying to invalidate anyone's activism, Timothy replies calmly. I'm questioning the expectation that public commentary is the only metric of caring. The audience murmurs again, a mix of agreement and skepticism. Whoopi folds her arms loosely. But it's a powerful metric. Timothy nods. Powerful, yes. Complete, no. There's a beat. Joy leans in. Let me ask you this. You have young fans. Teenagers. College students. They look at you and see someone intelligent, thoughtful, aware. When they're confused about what's happening in the world, they might look to you for guidance. What do you say to that? Timothy considers the question carefully. I say, don't look to actors for guidance on complex policy. Look to educators, organizers, journalists. A few claps break out, but they're scattered. Sunny raises her eyebrows. But you don't get to decide who people look up to. That's true, Timothy admits. But I can remind them I'm not an authority. Whoopi tilts her head. But influence doesn't require authority. There's a quiet from the audience. Timothy exhales softly. I just worry that we've blurred the lines between entertainer and elected official. Sunny responds immediately. No one's asking you to draft legislation. The audience laughs lightly. But we are asking you, she continues, to show where you stand. Timothy's expression tightens just slightly. On every issue? Joy answers quickly. On the big ones. And who decides which ones those are? He asks. The audience reacts louder to that, a mix of applause and murmurs. Whoopi doesn't smile. The people affected by them. Timothy nods. And those people deserve real advocacy. I just don't think my Instagram caption changes systemic injustice. Sunny leans in. It can amplify voices fighting it. Timothy pauses. And I do amplify. Quietly. Joy laughs softly. Quietly doesn't trend. That's kind of my point, Timothy says. The room reacts again, louder this time. Whoopi's tone becomes more pointed. You keep coming back to performance. Let me be clear. There are people who have risked careers, safety, reputations to speak publicly. That's not performance. That's courage. The audience applauds strongly at that. Timothy nods immediately. I agree. And I respect that deeply. Then why hesitate? Sunny presses. Because not everyone's role is the same, he replies. Some people are built for frontline activism. Some people contribute differently. Joy raises an eyebrow. And what is your role? Timothy answers steadily. To make art that reflects the world. To support causes I believe in. To vote. To engage in my community. I just don't think every engagement has to be broadcast. Whoopi watches him closely. But you are broadcast. That's the nature of your job. There's a ripple of agreement in the audience. Timothy doesn't flinch. My job is acting. The broadcasting part comes with it, yes. But I don't think fame automatically qualifies me as a moral spokesperson. Sunny responds. It doesn't qualify you, but it does position you. The audience reacts audibly, a strong clap wave. Timothy nods slowly. Position, yes. Obligated to speak instantly, no. Whoopi's voice lowers slightly, measured but firm. Nobody's asking for instant. We're asking for visible solidarity. The word solidarity hangs in the air. Timothy thinks for a moment. What if solidarity sometimes looks like funding organizations without turning it into a headline? Joy interjects, because transparency builds trust. And privacy builds sincerity, Timothy replies. The audience reacts sharply, louder now, divided. Sunny crosses her arms. Or privacy protects image. That lands harder than anything so far. There's an audible "oh" from the audience. Timothy's eyes widen slightly. That's not fair. Sunny doesn't back down. Isn't it? You benefit from staying neutral in certain spaces. I'm not neutral, he says more firmly than before. Whoopi jumps in, moderating. Okay, let's not talk over each other. She turns to Timothy. Why does this feel personal to you? He pauses. Because, he says slowly, I've seen colleagues torn apart online for saying imperfect things while trying to do the right thing. And it creates fear. Real fear. The room quiets again. Joy softens slightly. Fear of what? Of saying the wrong word. Of not being nuanced enough in 280 characters. Of being labeled something you're not. Sunny responds, calmer now. Accountability can feel uncomfortable. Yes, Timothy agrees. But mob reactions aren't always accountability. The audience reacts, louder than before. Whoopi nods slowly. That's a fair distinction. Timothy continues, encouraged. I want to engage meaningfully. I just don't want engagement to become a performance test. Sunny sighs lightly. But silence can be read as a performance too. He shakes his head gently. Silence can also be someone learning. Joy glances at Whoopi. This is deeper than I thought it would be. Whoopi looks directly at Timothy. Let me ask you something very simple. Do you think celebrities have more responsibility than average citizens when it comes to speaking out? Timothy hesitates, the first real hesitation. Yes, he says finally. More visibility means more impact. I accept that. The audience applauds. They've been waiting for that admission. But, he adds quickly, I think responsibility should be exercised thoughtfully, not reactively. Sunny nods slowly. So what does that look like to you? Conversations like this, he says. Long form. Not hashtags. The audience reacts with mixed laughter and clapping. Whoopi tilts her head. So you'd rather debate here than post there? I'd rather talk in spaces where nuance is possible, he replies. Joy chuckles. You think we're nuanced? The audience laughs loudly. Timothy smiles faintly. More than Twitter. Even Whoopi cracks a small smile at that. But she quickly regains focus. Here's my concern. Not everyone gets invited to this table. Social media can be their table. That quiets the laughter instantly. Timothy nods. That's true. So when you dismiss it, Whoopi continues, it can sound like you're dismissing their only megaphone. He shakes his head immediately. I'm not dismissing it. I'm just resisting the idea that it's the only valid form of engagement. Sunny leans in again. But for many, it's the most accessible. And I respect that, he says. I just don't think accessibility should eliminate depth. The audience murmurs. The debate is intense now, but controlled. Whoopi studies him carefully. You're very calm. Timothy gives a small shrug. I'm trying to be. Joy laughs lightly. Trust me, that won't last. The audience laughs, easing tension slightly. But Whoopi presses one more time before the segment ends. If tomorrow your fans start a campaign asking you to publicly support something specific, directly, would you do it? Timothy looks at her steadily. If I genuinely understood it and believed in it, yes. And if you didn't? I'd say I'm still learning. Sunny tilts her head. And risk disappointing them? He nods. Yes. The audience reacts strongly, divided applause. Whoopi leans back again. All right, we're not done yet. When we come back, I want to talk about whether disappointment is sometimes the cost of leadership. The applause swells again as the camera pulls back. Timothy sits composed, but the tension at the table is unmistakable now. The conversation has shifted from theory to personal conviction. And it's clear, this debate is getting sharper. The applause fades as the show returns once more, but this time the energy in the studio feels heavier. The earlier back and forth has moved past polite disagreement. The audience can sense it. The hosts can feel it. Even Timothy sits a little straighter now, no longer just answering questions. He's defending a position. Whoopi begins again, her tone steady but more direct. Before the break, we were talking about disappointment being the cost of leadership. And I want to stay there, because whether you like it or not, people see you as a leader. Timothy gives a small, almost reluctant smile. That's generous. It's reality, Sunny says quickly. A few claps ripple through the audience. Whoopi continues. You may not have asked for that role, but it comes with the visibility. So when you say you're willing to disappoint fans by staying quiet while you learn, that's a choice. Leadership is often about stepping forward even when you're not fully comfortable. Timothy nods slowly. I understand that, but I don't equate leadership with volume. Joy leans in. But sometimes leadership is about clarity. And clarity requires understanding, Timothy replies. Sunny shakes her head slightly. You keep framing this like speaking out equals confusion. That's not what I'm saying, he responds calmly. I'm saying speed and clarity aren't the same thing. The audience murmurs, louder this time. Whoopi doesn't break eye contact. Let me make this specific. When something affects marginalized communities, communities that already struggle to be heard, your voice adds weight. Even if it's imperfect. Timothy exhales slowly. I agree voices matter. I just think sometimes adding another celebrity voice can drown out the people actually living it. The audience reacts sharply, some applause, some disagreement. Sunny responds immediately. Or it can amplify them. It can, he admits. But it can also redirect attention. Joy cuts in, a little sharper now. So what are you afraid of, exactly? Getting it wrong. Or getting criticized. There's an audible shift in the audience. Timothy pauses. He doesn't answer immediately. I'm not afraid of criticism, he says finally. I'm cautious about oversimplifying. Sonny leans forward. Oversimplifying injustice? Oversimplifying complex realities, he corrects gently. Whoopi's tone hardens slightly. For people living through those realities, it's not abstract. It's not a thought exercise. It's urgent. The audience applauds loudly at that. Timothy nods, serious. I'm not treating it like an exercise. I'm saying I don't want to reduce it to a slogan. Joy lifts her hands. Nobody here said slogan. But that's what social media often becomes, he replies. Sonny shakes her head. You're painting it all with one brush. I'm describing what I've observed, he says. Whoopi interrupts before it escalates further. Let me ask you something different. Have you ever regretted not speaking sooner on something? There's a noticeable pause. Yes, Timothy says quietly. The room stills. Joy raises her eyebrows. Oh, he nods. Yes, there have been moments where I waited. And later I thought, maybe I should have said something earlier. Sonny softens slightly. So then you understand the weight. I do, he replies. But I also understand the weight of saying something half-formed. Whoopi studies him carefully. Do you think you're holding yourself to a higher standard than you hold the world? That question lands heavily. Timothy blinks, taken slightly off guard. What do you mean? I mean, Whoopi says, the world is messy. People speak imperfectly all the time. Growth happens publicly. Why should you be exempt from that? I'm not asking to be exempt, he says quickly. I just don't think my learning process needs to be a public performance. Sonny responds, but when you're in the public eye, growth is public whether you want it to be or not. The audience murmurs again. Timothy leans back slightly now, exhaling. That's exactly the issue. There's no room to be wrong. Joy laughs lightly. Oh, there's room. You just get dragged for it. The audience laughs, tension breaking for a moment. But Whoopi doesn't laugh. Growth comes from accountability. And accountability should be measured, Timothy replies. Sonny tilts her head. Measured by who? By intent and action, he answers. Not by trend cycles. There's a louder reaction from the audience. The division is obvious now. Whoopi's voice lowers, more intense. Intent doesn't always matter to the people harmed. That line lands hard. Timothy nods slowly. I know. And impact, Whoopi continues, is often shaped by what influential people say or don't say. He holds her gaze. I don't believe my silence creates harm. Sonny responds quickly, but it can contribute to invisibility. Invisibility exists long before me, he says. The audience gasps slightly at the bluntness of that response. Whoopi raises a hand. Careful. Timothy immediately clarifies. I'm not dismissing it. I'm saying the system is bigger than any one actor. Joy jumps in. But systems are made of people, including you. There's strong applause. Timothy's tone becomes firmer now. And I participate. I just don't believe participation requires constant public declaration. Sonny crosses her arms again. It sounds like you want the influence without the obligation. That line hits the hardest so far. The audience reacts loudly, a mixture of applause and audible wow. Timothy's composure wavers slightly for the first time. That's not fair, he says, voice a little sharper now. Whoopi steps in quickly. Let him answer. Timothy takes a breath. I don't want influence. I wanted to act. Influence is a byproduct. I'm trying to navigate it responsibly without turning into a spokesperson for everything. Sonny responds, calm but unwavering. You don't get to choose the parts of influence that are comfortable. And I'm not choosing comfort, he says. I'm choosing caution. Joy shakes her head. Sometimes caution protects the status quo. The audience claps loudly at that. Timothy looks momentarily frustrated. That assumes my silence equals agreement with harm. It doesn't. Whoopi leans in again. But perception matters. Perception is not always truth, he replies. True, Whoopi says. But perception shapes culture. There's a heavy pause. Timothy's voice softens slightly. I think culture also needs space for thoughtfulness. Sonny responds gently but firmly. And urgency. They lock eyes for a second, neither angry, but neither yielding. Joy glances at the audience. This is the most serious we've been all week. A few nervous laughs break out. Whoopi takes a breath. Let me ask you this. If a young fan came to you and said, your silence made me feel unsupported, what would you say? Timothy doesn't hesitate this time. I would listen. and I would apologize for how it felt. The audience quiets again. But, he adds, I would also explain that my silence wasn't indifference. It was me trying to understand. Sonny nods slowly. That's fair. But feelings don't wait for explanations. He nods back. I know. There's a brief silence, not hostile but reflective. Whoopi finally leans back in her chair. I think what we're circling is this. You believe in intentional speech. We believe in visible solidarity. Timothy nods. That's a fair summary. Joy looks between them. And maybe both can exist. The audience applauds, the first unified applause in a while. But the tension hasn't fully dissolved. It's just shifted into something quieter. Whoopi looks at Timothy one more time. You're thoughtful. I'll give you that. But the world is loud. And sometimes quiet thoughtfulness gets drowned out. Timothy responds gently, maybe. But maybe loudness sometimes drowns out listening. The audience reacts again, softer this time. There's no shouting. No dramatic blow-up. Just a deep, unresolved disagreement playing out in real time. Whoopi turns toward the camera slightly. We're going to take one final break. When we come back, we'll wrap this up, and maybe see if we've found any common ground. The applause rises again as the camera pulls back. Timothy exhales slowly, running a hand briefly over his face before straightening up again. The debate isn't explosive. It's something more complicated, generational, philosophical, personal. And everyone in the room knows the final segment will matter. The show comes back from the final break, and the energy in the studio is different now. Not explosive, not playful, just reflective. The audience claps, but it's calmer than before. You can feel that something real just happened. Whoopi looks straight ahead, then at Timothy. All right, she says evenly. We've gone deep this morning. A few soft laughs from the audience. Joy adds, deeper than I expected at 11 a.m. More laughter, easing the tension just slightly. Timothy smiles faintly, but he looks thoughtful. Not defensive anymore. Just aware. Whoopi continues. I want to be clear about something. This isn't about attacking you. It's about wrestling with what responsibility looks like right now. And it's changing. Timothy nods. I don't feel attacked. Sonny glances at him. Good. Because we weren't trying to. The audience chuckles lightly. Whoopi folds her hands on the table. I think where we land, at least for me, is this: visibility carries weight, whether you want it to or not. Timothy responds calmly. And I accept that. I just want to carry it carefully. Joy leans in. Carefully is good. But sometimes carefully can look like cautiously protecting your brand. There's a small reaction from the audience. Not as loud as before, but noticeable. Timothy doesn't react defensively this time. I understand why it can look that way. I do. But protecting my brand isn't my goal. Protecting my integrity is. That line gets strong applause. Sonny nods slowly. Integrity also means standing up when it's uncomfortable. It does, he agrees. And I have. Just not always publicly. Whoopi tilts her head. And that's where we differ. Because for us, especially sitting at this table, public conversation is the work. The audience applauds loudly at that. Timothy gestures slightly toward them. And I respect that. I respect what this show does. It creates dialogue. Joy smiles. You survived it. The audience laughs. Timothy smiles back. Barely. Whoopi lets out a small laugh, the first fully relaxed one from her since the debate intensified. We didn't bite. Not too hard, he says. The audience laughs again, and the tension finally begins to loosen. But Whoopi shifts back into seriousness one last time. I do want to say this. There are people watching right now who don't have the luxury of learning quietly. Their lives are impacted in real time. So when we push you, it's coming from that place. Timothy nods, his tone softer than it's been all morning. I hear that, and I don't dismiss it. Sonny adds, and maybe the takeaway here is that influence isn't one size fits all. That's fair, Timothy says. Joy shrugs. And maybe you'll tweet later. The audience bursts into laughter. Timothy grins. Don't count on it. More laughter and applause. Whoopi turns slightly toward the audience. Well, this is what conversation looks like. Nobody flipped a table. Nobody stormed off. Joy raises her hand playfully. There's still time. The audience laughs loudly. But the mood now is reflective. There's no clear winner. No viral mic drop moment. Just a real disagreement that played out live. Whoopi looks back at Timothy. Final thought. He pauses, choosing his words carefully one last time. I think we all want the same thing, a more just world. We just disagree on how loud we each need to be while working toward it. The audience applauds, not explosively, but sincerely. Sunny nods. That's fair. Whoopi gives a small nod too. That's fair. The segment ends with applause, and the show moves on to a lighter topic. But the conversation lingers. After the taping wraps, audience members can be seen talking animatedly among themselves. Some clearly side with Whoopi, nodding, saying celebrities should speak out more. Others mention that Timothée made valid points about nuance and performative pressure. Clips from the exchange begin circulating online within minutes. On X, some users praise Whoopi for pressing him. Others accuse the hosts of demanding performative activism. On Instagram, short clips of Timothée saying, "Visibility doesn't equal virtue," and "impact isn't measured only in volume" begin trending. TikTok stitches pop up, with creators debating both sides. Some headlines read, "Did Timothée Chalamet dodge accountability?" Others frame it differently. Timothée pushes back on celebrity activism expectations. Neither side fully dominates the narrative. Later that afternoon, neither Timothée nor the hosts post direct statements about the debate. And that, in itself, becomes part of the discussion. Entertainment outlets replay the segment. Commentators call it one of the more substantive celebrity interviews in recent daytime TV. Not explosive, but layered. Behind the scenes, sources say the conversation continued briefly off-camera, calmer, more conversational. No hard feelings, just disagreement. And that's what made it compelling. No screaming, no walk-offs, just two perspectives colliding in real time. By the evening, the clip has millions of views across platforms. Comment sections are flooded. Some viewers say Timothée showed maturity and restraint. Others say Whoopi was right to demand more visible solidarity. The debate becomes bigger than the show itself. It taps into a larger cultural question. What do we really expect from public figures? And maybe that's why it resonated. Because it wasn't scripted outrage. It was uncomfortable, thoughtful, unresolved conversation. The kind that lingers after the credits roll. Now we want to hear from you. Was Timothée right to prioritize thoughtfulness over immediacy? Or was Whoopi right that visibility demands visible action? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.